I just don't want you wasting your time pushing completely just non-meaningful tasks around. Like, I love my content calendar, but it doesn't need to be a job in itself to manage. It's supposed to help me save time, not add to it. So I have a content number reconciliation and a daily move content. So this is essentially a reconciling of the content pushing over a day, and then this is the reconciling of the number. Okay, so let me walk through each of them one by one. Hi, my name is Dimitri Panici, and I'm a content creator, agency owner, and AI enthusiast. You're listening to the AI Agents Podcast, brought to you by Jotform, and featuring our very own CEO and founder, Ida Tank. This is the show where artificial intelligence meets innovation, productivity, and the tools shaping the future of work. Enjoy the show. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the AI Agents Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to dive into how you can really save a lot of time using AI agents in any workflow that you can imagine. And this especially is going to be true in cases where you would be organizing. Now, I'm going to show you a few use cases in this episode. So if you are someone who's listening on the audio version, make sure to go to our YouTube channel by looking up the AI Agents Podcast and checking out the link in the show notes. What I'm essentially going to show you is a few different examples of how I save time in my content creation system by preventing a couple different, just like upkeep tasks that honestly don't mean anything, but essentially are prevented from being done in a fast and consistent basis just by the virtue of having a lot of clients and them being very tedious. So here are a couple things that I do in order to keep things organized inside of my system. And these AI agents that I make are going to be very beneficial to anyone who tries them out. All right, so as usual, I'm going to be using make.com as my main automation platform. And I'm going to be using my Notion account to show off what my system looks like. So for example, on this content calendar right here, what I have is a essentially nice little setup that showcases all of the different content that I have produced with the team here at the AI Agents Podcast. And what you'll notice inside of this is essentially a setup that is broken up into things like long form videos, podcasts, short videos, and stuff like that. Now, there are a couple things that happen when it comes to these different categories that are really frustrating. One is that numbering can get out of order. So say, for example, I'm somebody who works very consistently in this client and a lot of other clients. I really just can't stand the fact that, when a new piece of content is made and, for example, a publish date would go in front of another publish date, this numbering gets, missorted, so to say. Now, you may be saying, what does this even mean? All right. This is essentially a step-by-step example for you. So first of all, if I started the podcast with Ideken in December, you'll see that the first episode is going to be the earliest date. And then the second earliest episode would be the second number, so on and so forth, right? All the way up to what looks like 18, but somehow it got misnumbered, whether it's me, automations that can occur outside of this, trying to add an automatic number. This type of stuff's just annoying, all right? So what I'd usually have to do was I would have to go and okay, let me just renumber this and change it to 18 or whatever. Okay, that's cool. Now, that's a small thing that needs to be done. However, I make hundreds of pieces of content a month across many clients. So someone going in and literally just checking this every day, oh God, that would not be fun. What I've managed to do though is take an automation and prevent this from being an issue, right? So let me just show you how that is the case and how I can prevent this from being a problem. First of all, that is the kind of big issue that I have, but there's also a second issue that I want to cover really quick. So many times, we have a goal publish date and for some reason someone didn't finish it on time. I don't know, maybe I'm just a little slow on working on stuff. For example, let's say it is this day, it's about to be the 17th and on the 16th, I didn't finish this recording. Okay, no big deal. Let's just take these and move them to today. Seems simple enough. But the same thing happens on a daily basis where I go, dang, wait a second. How many clients do I have? Oh, I have to bump 5, 10, 15 different things. Oh, that's actually kind of a lot. Wait a second. I missed doing that over a couple days. Oh, wait, why is half my calendar like a couple days off? It's because you didn't have something automatically pushing stuff around. And honestly, why would you want to automatically push it around yourself? It's a waste of time. Of course it is. Your time should be spent doing other things. Renumbering and pushing things around? You don't want to be a pencil pusher, and you sure as heck don't want to be a calendar pusher. So let me show you how I've made an automation that makes this work practically. So I have two different automations that I'll show you, one for the numbers, one for the calendars. And these are essentially just ideas, right? To give you concepts on how you can take these step-by-step things that you're pushing and essentially fix your workflows and have you take way less time in your day-to-day. I just don't want you wasting your time pushing completely just non-meaningful tasks around. Like, I love my content calendar, but it doesn't need to be a job in itself to manage. It's supposed to help me save time, not add to it. So I have a content number reconciliation and a daily move content. So this is essentially a reconciling of the content pushing over a day, and then this is the reconciling of the number. Okay, so let me walk through each of them one by one. So the previous content reconciliation, basically where it's like a day off. This one's actually a little bit more straightforward. So let's take a look at this. I'm just going to filter this out to only being for this client to show you how it works. So just for example, I'm going to push these to this day and filter this to be only for the AI Agents podcast content. And what you'll find is essentially these bits of content, right, are pieces of content that essentially these two guys right here are unfortunately not in line with what we want. Okay, so these should be on the 16th. But what ended up happening is I was slow to finish them, and that stinks. But what we can do is essentially have this automatically run very early in the morning before I even log in. So basically it gets that crossover content that like would have gotten pushed forward. And what it's going to do is it's going to find future content, see if there's any future content on that next day. And if there isn't, it's going to push it a day forward. So it's finding the content that's on that same day. And what you'll notice is since there was no content that isn't published on this day, it'll push it to this day. Now, more reasonably, you'll notice this ends up helping out with not only like client content, I can have this set up for my own internal content. It's pretty cool. And all this does is it essentially looks for, those different clients, content that is delayed. And I guess it's good that only that one's popping up on my list, but it does happen on a daily basis that it pushes stuff. So let's say it finds previous content, right? Once again, after finding it just overall for any clients, and then it specifically has the same parameters of finding basically anything that is before today that's not published or scheduled, and the content would be for the specific content type and client that I was looking at. So I essentially put it into a aggregator and group it by client name and content type, and then I look for it at a content type and client level. And I'm essentially looking for the first previous content. So I'm finding that like first one on the list for that type. And then I'll search for content on that same day. So say, for example, there's content on that same day. What I want to make sure is that I don't like overlap on them. So what this is doing is it's then finding that client content that is the same content type, and it's not archived, scheduled, published, and it's not like a piece of content that I have like locked on the calendar. What it's going to do is if the content has no other bundles on that day, meaning there's like nothing that's going to be in conflict, it just pushes it to the next day. But if there is content that's in conflict, what it'll do is it'll push the content that's in conflict forward, right? So it's going to find the same things right here, and it's got the same kind of concept, except it's not that first piece of content that's found. And then what it'll do is it's going to search for the same content on that day that's step by step past it by checking the bundle order position here. So bundle order position means like, okay, so say for example, I'm finding all the future content. I'll show you an example of this really quick that I did in an automation, right? So if I go here to find all future content, cool. This is 7 pieces of content kind of in a row. That's basically, we're trying to double check does or does not have to get pushed forward. So in this first one, you'll find that there's multiple pieces of content that's on the same day. So then we have to push those content forward, okay? So imagine basically this automation would check, okay, wait a second. There's not only content here that would be on this day, rather than there being nothing there. So what it would do is it would like okay, push these guys forward and then push these guys forward, which is a really, really small thing that essentially everyone would do if they're able to make that happen. However, here's the thing. In a daily system where everyone's managing everything and it just gets bogged down, you're not gonna have the time to click and drag these over. And why would you want to? So this essentially just prevents you from having it in a long stack, just kind of like you have to push step by step, like, oh, wait a second, this was due today, let's push it to the next day. Oh, but there's 2 pieces of content that's the same on the same day. We don't want that. Let's just push it. Yeah, doing that for a bunch of clients a day, I used to do that. It's not fun. Sure, you could just finish the work on time, but deadlines are not as critical for some of these clients and they just kind of want it to be produced. So what this is doing is essentially just like rolling everything along rather than like you needing to be so concrete on these dates. And then, when the date falls apart, it just makes the whole relationship sour. And I kind of work in a relationship where it's like, yeah, we have quotas per month and stuff like that, but specific days aren't as important for like these long form videos. So this really helps me there. And then the other automation here is a content number reordering. So what is this doing? This is essentially finding clients, right, in the same way. So we got clients here, and what this is doing is this is essentially figuring out the different content for each client, and from there, figuring out whether the content list is in order. Now, this is hard-coded JavaScript that we have utilized dumpling.ai to organize things. So what is this hard-coded JavaScript saying? Basically, sort the array of the different pieces of content in the different content type categories that are grouped by publish date and the created date. So basically, if the publish date and created date are in alignment and the content numbers are in alignment, as I showed you earlier, proper alignment is this guy right here being 18 instead of 19 and the numbers being sequential. Oh, wait, there's 2 14s. That doesn't make any sense, right? Like, this is why it's jacked up. There's like some numbering problems here. What we got to do is we got to fix this. However, manually going through and fixing this every day is annoying, is not worth it. Rather, what I'd have us do is have it figure out whether there's a yes or a no on whether it's the right order. And if it's a yes, then what it's going to do is it's going to utilize a GPT individual prompt here that then cross-references the JSON data from here earlier in this aggregated text and figures out the proper order. And then after the proper order is there, what we do is we make sure to code it correctly so that it can be parsed into some JSON. And then from there, we iterate the JSON bundle into finding the content once again that we want to renumber. So then finding that client again, finding the content type that's there, making sure it's the right publish date and created time. And then last but not least, we update this to have the updated content number, and also updates a media folder and thumbnail folder, as well as media file and thumbnail file if those are actually in there. Now, for me, I actually have an entire Google Drive to Notion sync that if you ever are interested in, let me know. But I've synced everything in my content calendars to a Google Drive that I made myself. So I hand built this integration, which is awesome. But essentially, it's going to update the number in here, which would also update the synced Google Drive folder number as well. So let's try this out for our client. And what you're watching right now, let's actually do this. And this runs at a Monday, Wednesday, Friday level because it does kind of take up a decent amount of automation. So let's run this. And what it's essentially going to do is exactly what I said. It's going to find the clients I have. And obviously the AI Agents podcast is the one I filtered it to, right? So it finds this podcast. It then parses the JSON into different content types that are here, finds the content types relative to the different types here. So as you can see, it found out that no, it's not in the right order. That stinks. Watch it do its magic though and renumber everything. I'm really excited about this. So inside of this system, it's going to renumber everything, and hallelujah, I needed that. So let's try it out. And as you'll see here, it starts to update the different pieces of content. So starting with number 12 here, right? Should have been numbered properly as 12. It was misnumbered. Okay. So then we got 13, right? Then we got 14, 15, 16, 17, and it's going to switch to 18. Just give it a second. So it's essentially going to go through and it's going to figure out here, is the content number not equal to what it's supposed to be? And did it find that same piece of content here? So let's just work through that real quick. So see, it's going to update a couple of them. We're on 17. Let's get to the next number here. And look at that. We got this right order here. So we got 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, and 18 is the same number here. So we got the same amount in this order. This is perfect. This is amazing. This is what we wanted. And that obviously is going to go through for the podcast after that, right? Like we went through from a content type by content type basis. That's a specific property within the system we have. And that's the great thing about this. It's going to go through client by client. It's going to go through content type by content type. So we make sure that it's only, keeping this updated numbering and updating, day of the week sort of thing. And like when it is actually going to be published based on the factors that matter, because content numbers go up for each content type specifically. And we don't want two pieces of content of the same content type to be posted on the same day unless we do something specifically to override that. So since those principles are what matter to me to keep things organized, I'm going to have it automatically do it, because why would I trust anything when it comes to people doing it manually? Because let's be honest, I'm not saying people are lazy. I'm just saying being a stickler for systems like that is not usually what are within people's capabilities. So I'd rather just have the system do it for them. So with that in mind, what are the different ways that you can maybe utilize systems like this in order to save time and do more in your own business? If you're a small business that has various if-then factors, I seriously recommend that you find a way to build AI agent workflows just like this one. If you can't find ways to have this built, then simply put, I don't think that you're thinking in that if-then logic, right? Like it just updated the podcast, that's great. And imagine that just didn't happen for, one client and one piece of content that's misnumbered. Imagine that happened for a bunch of different clients over days and weeks. This is something where it's essentially like 500 times a month these things are probably needed. And rather than it taking a couple minutes of time from people, it's like working on this for like 5, even 15, 20 minutes a day over a week, that's anywhere from like 2 to 3 hours. And that's like 10 hours a month of work for the cost of what is essentially a few dollars. Even if you're just paying $10 an hour, right? Like it's $100. So this is something that obviously I can't tell you enough. You got to start thinking in this if-then logic, and then more AI agent stuff is possible than you could even imagine. If you're interested in other workflows just like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We're really excited to show you more stuff just like this one in future episodes. Make sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Be on the lookout for future episodes. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.